we could all agree that the current spin-offs for the Walking Dead universe have been pretty weak, and they've just been hits or misses. And I believe that the Walking Dead universe should change, right? You know, they should introduce more ideas and more adaptations from the source material. And one story that they could adapt into the Walking Dead universe is Rise of the Governor. So in today's video, I'm just going to be talking about how this could be a good idea, how they could adapt Rise of the Governor, and how this could be very beneficial for the Walking Dead universe going forward. So please stay tuned. And now, before we actually get into the video, I'd like to ask you all to like, share, and subscribe. And again, thank you guys so much for the growth. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to ask you all to like this video as much as you guys can. It helps a ton. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. And now, for those of you who don't know, Rise of the Governor is a novel that is set in the Walking Dead comics universe, and obviously it is about the governor, right? And it's about his backstory and just more insight about his family, about Penny, and how did he take over Woodbury. And the story is very interesting, right? You could see the governor in a whole different light. And of course, back then when this novel did come out, the governor was very popular, right? He was, in the time, he was the only villain in the Walking Dead universe, the only major villain, the one that caused the most problems for Rick and his group. And this was before Negan came into the scene. And I believe that if they were to make a spin-off about this story, I think it would be very interesting. And now, I don't want to get into detail about this novel because I want to make a separate video just breaking down this novel in general, just to give everyone a better insight in the governor's backstory. And I feel as that a lot of people do not know this novel even exists, so you guys could expect a video in the future about this novel. But if they were to adapt this into a spin-off, it would be very beneficial for the Walking Dead universe. First of all, the Walking Dead universe is lacking interesting stories. Yes, we did get Dead City, Daryl Dixon, and The Ones Who Live, but it felt as that these spin-offs were very underwhelming, right? And just only having 6 episodes and not really much detail, and making us wait for the other seasons, and just not really having that build up to the broader Walking Dead universe. I think that is what made these spin-offs fail. So I feel as that if they were to adapt Rise of the Governor, it would basically make The Walking Dead go back to ground zero. And that's what Tales of the Walking Dead tried doing, but they failed horribly because they did not have any familiar faces except for Alpha, right? You have Alpha's backstory. That episode was good, but something like that would have been more interesting for Tales of the Walking Dead. And I did make a video quite some time back theorizing about Tales of the Walking Dead season 2, and if they could adapt Rise of the Governor in that, they could just make a totally separate episode just on the governor and explaining how he took over Woodbury. And that would be the best thing for the Walking Dead universe, because other than Negan, the governor is the biggest villain for the Walking Dead universe. His effect stayed throughout the Walking Dead main show, and they still do mention the governor here and there. And as of right now, on social media and stuff like that, I see that the governor is gaining a lot of popularity. People do call him the best villain, and we did get some teases in the show about his backstory. So what if they just adapt this novel into live action, right? You know, they just show what the governor did and how he took over Woodbury, or how he even built the walls, right? Because in the Walking Dead show, it is implied that the governor did make Woodbury himself. He did not have to take over it. So they could loosely adapt this novel. But the main point here is that if they were to make a spin-off about the governor solely, I think that would be very nice. And also it would go back to the main roots of the Walking Dead, and we could see what the governor did in the start of the outbreak, like what happened to his wife, right? He did not know what his wife said to him on the phone because he was too busy working. So it would be interesting seeing what his wife said, and also how his daughter got bit. And just another piece of trivia, in the comics, Penny is not the governor's daughter. Penny is actually the governor's niece. So yeah, you know, you just have to loosely adapt this novel. You don't have to go word for word, right? Because again, that's going to go into way too much detail. And if they were to make this a Tales of the Walking Dead episode, that would be interesting. But personally, I would go for just a solid 6 episodes, 1 season, on the governor solely. And I understand that this does not help The Walking Dead in a broad aspect, right? This does not tease some stuff about reunions or crossover spin-offs, but it would be very interesting to see how did the governor develop this whole persona of being the governor. Why do they call him the governor? How did he become their governor? How did he become the leader of Woodbury? How did he assume that power and that position? And how did he become into such an insane madman, right? Because when the governor was first introduced in the Walking Dead main show, he killed soldiers right off the bat. So we did not see that development of how did he go to insanity. Of course, it was because of Penny dying, which drove him to that. But it would be very interesting to see, how did Penny get bit right in the start, and how did he, take over Woodbury or build Woodbury, and how did he become insane looking for a cure, right? How did he become friends with Martinez? So how did Martinez come into the group? How did the doctor come into the group, right? There is a lot of stuff that is unexplained and we just don't know about, which they could use in this spin-off for the governor. And of course, live action is personally the way to go, but there is another way that they could adapt this novel into the Walking Dead universe. And the way that they could adapt this is animation, right? They could go fully animated with this, and they could just get the people who made Invincible to make this thing, right? I mean, it's only one season, 6 episodes, and personally I think that David Morrissey wouldn't be up for live action, right? Because again, age comes into factor and all of that. So I think he would still be up for voicing the character of the governor, right? And of course, this could be canon to The Walking Dead. We've seen this countless times with other franchises, that the animated stuff are also canon to the main universe. It's basically just telling that story in a different way visually, right? For example, The Boys Diabolical, right? One of the episodes showing Homelander's first day and his past and stuff like that, that is canon to the main Boys show. And also the actors did voice their characters in that show as well. So it'd be very cool, and I think it would make sense animated. And of course, live action has a lot of costs, right? For example, set pieces and actors and all that. Rebuilding Woodbury would be another mission. But if they were to go animated, they could do much, much more with it, and with just the characters being voiced by their real actors, I think that that is the best way to go. And it's just a fun little side thing for Walking Dead fans, right? We want to see more of the governor. We want to see this character explored more, right? And I think that that was a huge missed opportunity in the Walking Dead main show, right? They could have showed some flashbacks of the governor, and they could have just showed like some flashbacks of him building Woodbury, or how did Penny get bit, and just stuff like that, right? That is one thing we really did miss in the Walking Dead main show, right? We didn't get much backstory, right? For example, if you were to make a governor episode, which is like Here's Negan, right? For example, Here's Negan was Negan's backstory, and if they were to do something like that with the governor, I think people would see the governor in a totally different light. Of course, he is pure evil by the end, but again, just more insight on these characters, right, would be very, very interesting. We got one for Alpha, we got one for Negan, we should get one for the governor as well. But there is a different approach to this that they could take, and what I'm talking about is just a total adaptation of this novel, right? And have this be set in the comics universe, right? Make it animated, but also make it set in the comics universe. I think that there is no losing in that, right? Because they could just say that, oh yeah, this is set in the comics universe and this is not canon to the show. That'd be interesting as well, because you could animate the governor's design, right? You could make that full comic accurate governor design in animation, and it would be very cool to see the Invincible team working on this. And it's just basically their take on like an animated Walking Dead, and I think that if they were to do this, this would open the doors to more animated stuff in the Walking Dead universe. Maybe it's not part of the main Walking Dead universe. They could make some sort of thing on the side where it's just Walking Dead animated stuff, where it's all set in the comics, and we could see like some comic accurate stuff, such as Dale surviving until, like, you know, when they make it out into the woods after the governor, right? When they run into the cannibals, right? They could go for that sort of thing, and they could just show the same voice actors voicing their characters, but in the comics universe. I think that that would be very interesting, and that is an open door that they should really take, because again, the Walking Dead universe is, it's, I wouldn't say it's necessarily going stale, but they should try new things. And I think that in general, adapting Rise of the Governor in any sort of way would be interesting, and would open the gates to more characters getting their backstories explained in the Walking Dead universe, just to get them more fleshed out, and just for us to see them in a totally different light. And now that's it for today's video. I'd like to ask you all to like, share, and subscribe. And again, thank you guys so much for the growth. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really, really appreciate it. And I'd like to ask you all to like this video as much as you guys can. It helps a ton. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys so much for watching.